Trump thought he could humiliate Africa's youngest leader. But Traoré flipped the script and destroyed his ego in seconds. Subscribe now, because what unfolded next was even more explosive, and you don't want to miss the full story. The cameras were rolling, the audience buzzing, and the stage set for what was supposed to be a one-sided display of power. Donald Trump, confident as ever, leaned into the microphone with the swagger of a man who believed he owned the room. This was his stage, his show, or so he thought. But then, across from him, stood Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the youngest head of state in the world, calm, composed, carrying not the arrogance of privilege, but the weight of a people's struggle. Trump launched into his trademark style, mocking, belittling, playing to the crowd with lines meant to humiliate. The audience laughed, but it was nervous laughter, the kind that waits for what comes next. And then it happened. Traoré, unshaken, leaned forward. His words cut sharper than any insult, exposing hypocrisy with a truth so undeniable it made the room fall silent. Trump's smirk vanished. His ego, built on bluster, cracked under the pressure of dignity. In that moment, the audience erupted, not in laughter at Trump's jokes, but in thunderous applause for Traoré's courage. The world had just witnessed something historic. A young African leader dismantling one of the loudest political figures on earth live on TV. The confrontation wasn't just theater. It was symbolic. For decades, leaders from the global south had been talked over, dismissed, reduced to footnotes in history written by the West. Trump expected this to be no different. He expected compliance, but Traoré wasn't raised in corridors of privilege. He was shaped by revolution, by service, by sacrifice. As Trump doubled down, talking of great deals and how America runs the world, the tension in the air thickened. Traoré's silence between Trump's boast wasn't weakness. It was the silence before a storm. The audience leaned in. Commentators whispered, would this young African captain dare confront the giant of American politics? And then Traoré raised the stakes, not for himself, but for every nation tired of being told to kneel. His words carried the weight of history, the defiance of generations. This wasn't just about Burkina Faso, it was about dignity. Trump's career had been built on bravado. From New York boardrooms to presidential debates, his formula never changed: dominate, insult, overwhelm. He thrived on spectacle, on keeping opponents off balance. He mocked leaders, dismissed critics, and boasted about deals as though power itself was his birthright. But what made this clash different was that, for once, Trump's formula failed. The very tactics that once made him untouchable were unraveling. His arrogance, his dismissiveness, his history of talking over weaker voices, all of it now stood exposed. And the villain in this story was no longer just Trump the man, but the legacy of dominance he embodied. Ibrahim Traoré's rise was anything but ordinary. Born into a modest family, trained as a soldier, he rose through the ranks not through privilege, but through grit. At just 34, he took leadership of Burkina Faso during one of its darkest chapters. Terrorism, instability, poverty, yet he inspired his people not with empty promises, but with action, with sacrifice, with a refusal to surrender. In Traoré, people saw themselves, the young, the overlooked, the underestimated, and that authenticity gave him a power Trump could never match. The live debate reached its boiling point. Trump hurled insult after insult, raising his voice, mocking Traoré's age, his nation, his legitimacy. But instead of lashing out, Traoré let the attacks pass, his silence amplifying Trump's desperation. When he finally spoke, his words weren't just responses, they were indictments. He talked of colonization, of broken promises, of the dignity of nations long ignored. Trump interrupted, but the interruptions only made him look rattled. The contrast was undeniable. One man loud but crumbling, the other calm but unshakable. The tension built to a breaking point. The world waited for the blow that would end it. And then it came. Traoré leaned forward, his eyes locked on Trump. With a voice steady as steel, he dismantled every boast, every insult. He reminded Trump that true strength is not measured in wealth or weapons, but in the respect of a people. He pointed out that America's power meant nothing if it rested on humiliating others. The room fell into stunned silence. Trump, for the first time in years, had no comeback. His ego, his greatest weapon, was shattered live on TV. The audience erupted. Cheers, applause, chants of Traoré's name. Across the world, social media lit up. Clips of the moment spread like wildfire, each one captioned with disbelief. Did this really just happen? The debate may have ended that night, but the story was only beginning. What unfolded on live television spilled instantly onto phones, laptops, and airwaves around the world. Within minutes, clips of Ibrahim Traoré's takedown were trending across social media platforms. Hashtags emerged organically. Traoré destroys Trump, Africa rises, dignity wins. The internet had crowned its victor, and it wasn't the man who had walked onto the stage, expecting another ego-fueled triumph. On TikTok, creators looped Traoré's sharpest line over drum beats and hip-hop tracks, turning it into a viral anthem. On Twitter, commentators wrote threads unpacking the historical weight of the moment, linking his words to centuries of resistance and to a global hunger for justice. Instagram and Facebook flooded with memes, Trump's bewildered expression on one side, Traoré's calm stare on the other, with captions like "Strength is silence," "Power is dignity." Across Africa, the energy was electric. In Lagos, university students organized watch parties to replay the debate on giant screens, cheering every time Trump faltered under Traoré's gaze. In Nairobi, cafes buzzed with conversation about how a leader so young had managed to articulate the dignity of an entire continent in one unforgettable exchange. In Dakar, marketplaces rang with merchants debating whether this was simply a viral moment or the spark of something bigger, a new African confidence on the global stage, and ripple wasn't contained to Africa. In Latin America, commentators drew parallels to their own histories of being bullied by bigger powers. In Asia, bloggers praised Traoré as a sign of a shifting world order, where the global South was finally demanding its seat at the table. In Europe, reactions were mixed. Some saw his defiance as dangerous. But in US, the shockwaves cut deepest. Trump's loyal base tried to spin the story, calling it media exaggeration or stage tricks. Yet even conservative outlets struggled to ignore the footage of a rattled Trump, fumbling in real time. Liberal commentators, meanwhile, pounced. Headlines blared, "Traoré silences Trump," "The night the ego was shattered," "A young captain teaches America a lesson." The shockwaves weren't only cultural, they were political. Diplomats whispered about the Traoré effect, wondering if his defiance would inspire other leaders to speak more boldly in the face of Western dominance. Analysts asked, was this just a viral flash, or the start of a movement that would reshape geopolitics? And at the heart of it all stood Ibrahim Traoré. He hadn't set out to go viral. He hadn't performed for likes or applause. But his words, rooted in dignity, carried a resonance that algorithms could not contain. The aftermath was clear. This wasn't just about Trump being rattled. It was about the world waking up to a new voice. A timigi, voice that spoke with the authority of history and the fire of youth. But as the headlines raged and the memes multiplied, one question lingered. Was this merely a symbolic clash, or the beginning of a fundamental shift in global power? And the answer would come in the resolution. The lesson that emerged once the cheering quieted, once the dust began to settle. The clash was bigger than two men. It was about what leadership truly means. Traoré showed that courage and authenticity can silence arrogance. That standing firm in dignity carries more power than 1,000 insults. For the world, the lesson was universal. Respect is not granted by force. It is earned through truth. This wasn't just a debate. It was history unfolding live. A reminder that even the loudest voices can be humbled by truth. If this story stirred something in you, don't let it stop here. Share it, subscribe, and stay tuned because moments like this prove that the fight for dignity is global, and it's only just beginning. The stage may have dimmed, but the echo of Traoré's words will not fade.